Hello. Happy birthday to me and Panda, I think, if I read that correctly. Today I'm 37 years old. And yesterday I was 36, so explain to me how that works. Anyway, who cares? Let's listen to some music. Hopefully my internet is a little bit happier today than it was last week. All right, what's the first one we got? 2206. That reminds me of the 303 band. Let's make sure this is all turned off. There we go. Dynamics are all good. Thank you, Dark Forge UK. Okay, we're all good. Let's have a listen. Yeah, I kind of have similar feelings towards this as Dark Forge does. I think that there's a lot of really cool things happening. It is very PS1 kind of Silent Hill aesthetically speaking. My problem that I'm having with it right now is kind of like I'm not really sure what the main part of the song is. It kind of sounds like every part of the song is leading into the next part of the song, which is leading into the next part of the song. So I don't necessarily have like a main, almost like an anchor point for like, okay, this is the part that rocks out. There's like... Like they're all very cool parts, but they all kind of feel like they're building up to something else. Then none of them feel like home, if that makes sense. You see what I mean? Like this felt like a build-up. And then this still kind of feels like a build-up. Like I still feel like we're moving towards something. Thank you, Aiden. That's a very colorful way of saying that. Now I'm trying to give you, I'm trying to think of some like useful advice that you'd be able to put towards this, as opposed to me just saying, hey, there's no focal point, you know, that, I feel like if you could pick one section of the track that you think most most accurately represents the track itself in one section, then maybe structure the song around that and have it repeat that section. Now, that's not to say that an atypical arrangement wouldn't work. You know, it's not that I want it to be more predictable and more like build, drop, breakdown, build, drop. You know, it's just that it just doesn't feel, I don't feel like I'm getting the final gratification of like, and here's the part that I've been waiting for. It kind of just makes me feel like I'm just continuing to wait for the next part. But all the parts are like super cool. Like the track is very, very cool. I'm not trying to, you know, shit on it too aggressively. It's just missing that, like, finally we're here. Finally we can rock out to it feels like we're always holding back from our rocking outness. I'm not really sure if I have any good ideas on how to avoid that, though. I mean, like, you have a cool hook. I probably have the root note here, because it's kind of hanging down, like on that one semitone up note is kind of trailing off over the next section, and it feels weird. Yeah, I think you just have to build. I think for me anyway, when I'm listening to this, what would make this a better listening experience for me personally is if it built up and it landed on like, oh hell yeah, let's rock out now. I did like that, like, Mortal Kombat kind of throwback here at some point. That I really like that. So yeah, I think you have a lot of solid stuff to work with, but I just wish that you had more of a drop or a chorus, if you will, a focal point that feels like this is the clear climax of the song. This is the clear section in which we rock out to. Otherwise, very cool. All right, let's check out Aiden Dodge, Hard and Fast. That is a strange title. Why the piano? Why do you like this piano so much? I mean, I didn't not enjoy that. But at the same time, I can't take it seriously, and I don't think you are either, so I think that that's okay. I don't like that piano sound. Thank you, Raham. I don't like that piano sound, as I've mentioned before. I don't mind the melody that you chose, and it's funny because if you listen to that piano, the very last chord before it repeats, that chord sounds fine. So I think it's like the voicing of the notes you're playing. Take that minor third and put it up an octave, and it probably would sound a little bit less like muddy and gross down there. Like, yeah, it's the minor third it's down too low. Just put it up an octave, change the voicing, and it'll sound a bit more pure. And then for the hardstyle stuff, I don't really have any usable feedback on that. It's very aggressive. I'm pretty sure that Tim from down south would probably enjoy it. Except I feel like, and I'm talking about Sawyer, I feel like if Sawyer listened to this, he'd be like, the kick is too punchy. It's definitely interesting. I'm glad that you are extending your experimentations beyond your normal style. I would try playing with the voicing and not just for this song, but whenever you're using that style of piano, just be careful with the voicing down in the lower register, because playing those close intervals down that low, just the beat frequency between the two notes is too low frequency, and it just becomes a muddy mess. That's my only real piece of advice for this, because I don't really know how to critique the I don't know how to critique the hard style thing. I'm not like, oh, it needs more squanch and less squelch, it's not my thing. But I'm glad that you're playing around with that style. Cool. All right, let's check out Cheeky Newer. Did we finally get some vocals? Already, just having those vocals in there make it feel more like a song.
So cheeky.
Yeah, dude, that's like what I was picturing. It's like a Skepta kind of.
Still quite sleepy.
If anything, I would say the vocals need to come up and be more upfront, because I think they sound great, but I'm not understanding each of the lines perfectly, like easily.
Come on, I'm at that run for the win. Why you gotta be so cheeky?
And then.
Why you gotta be so cheeky?
Why you gotta be so cheeky down?
Why you gotta be so cheeky?
I kind of feel like the timing of this it should almost be.
Why you gotta be so cheeky?
Like this should be like, oh wait. It almost feels like it's off.
Why you gotta be so cheeky?
Like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I would put it there instead.
Why you gotta be so cheeky? Why you gotta be so cheeky?
And I wonder too, I know that I'm sounding like a, what's it called? When you say the same thing over and over again? Skipping record. But I feel like after that vocal delivery thing, it should drop simpler without all the chicka chicka.
Why you gotta be so cheeky?
Maybe just like a single upbeat hi-hat, and then you can bring in all the little 16th note shuffly bits like after. But I think why you gotta be so cheeky, like a bit more simplistic. And I like that. I like that you threw that in. I'd maybe have it a bit more like intelligible because like I understand having the effects on the vocals to give it like some artistic flair, but think that in this case the vocals should really be clear with some effects on them as opposed to like full on effecty, you know? That's my voice? I'm suing. I'd probably throw in, you know, how you had like your vocals kind of in the background at the very start, and I said I like them. I'd probably put that here. Yeah, like this is all sick, but I still think that and I think maybe you're aware of this because I think you said that you were aware of this, but like the vocal should be used throughout the track a bit more. You don't want to be annoying with it, like How We Win or Hot. I feel like maybe I might have overused the vocals on those a little bit, but I think that there's a big distance between what you're doing and what I did on those tracks. So I think using the vocals a bit more is probably the way to go. Like right there at why doesn't it say cheeky, you know? Rayhem is just pulling your leg. The commands don't work. You have to manually type in the Discord link. Yes, Rayhem tells everybody to do it, and then it doesn't do anything. That's the joke. So you just have to go to discord.gg/FowlerMusic. Yeah, so this is how I feel about this so far. I think that you're off to a good start with the vocal thing. I think that that's basically what I think. I think that you need to keep going with it and you need to use it. Like right now, the vocal thing, obviously, because you're just playing around with it, but it kind of sounds like an afterthought. And now you need to structure the arrangement in a way that makes the vocal seem like an important part of the track. So referencing it, throwing in the word cheeky at the end of little measures and stuff, you know, every once in a while, maybe switch it up. So it says, why you gotta be so cheeky, and then back into the drop. Yeah, it's literally an afterthought. I know, but now you need to structure it as though it is not an afterthought. But I think you did a good job on the vocals. That's pretty much exactly what I was envisioning in my head, was that style of vocal. Uh, I would just go a little lighter on the effects and have it more focused on like the vocal, like the words, and less on like how can I make this sound crazy. Thank you, Cuddy. I appreciate that. I'm also glad I'm still here for the time being. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Good job. Happy 67th birthday. Happy go fuck yourself. All right, Curtain Music. You got to submit a file I can download and load into FL Studio. So work on that while I'm listening to the other stuff. Okay, here we go. This one's called Iced Out. I don't remember who sent it in. Base 4, I guess. Base 4 instead of base 10? Really? Oh, shut up, Raham. I know it looks funny. Did it sound funny? It didn't sound funny to me. So yes, it looks funny. It looks unnatural. It looks like it shouldn't be done. But when I listened to it and I didn't look at it, it's just cheaty. Oh no. The only people that would care is our producers that are looking at the waveform. Just one per stream is what, otherwise it gets wild. Anyway, okay, so what do I think about this? I think this is sick. However, I do find that you have some wide elements in the track, but for the most part, like your main kind of sound design, workhorse, bass sound is like very mono. Like that roar. That almost sounds like 100% mono. Actually, it sounds like it's mostly your drums that are on the side. Yeah. So all of your bass is mono. And I mean, that would be good for a club system where it doesn't really matter, but I feel like for people listening to it on, a stereo system or on headphones, it's going to pay dividends to get a little bit of width in there. And I'm not just talking about doing some, cheaty stereo stuff. Raham, tell me your reasoning. Why can't you do it after the master? I'm just curious as to your, like, what are you basing this rule on? I'm just, let me know. Let me know why we're not allowed to do it after the master. I want to know what happens. See how lush this part sounds? pulling down a heavily limited section let some of the dynamics through. I mean, that's a better answer than I thought you were going to give. There's some validity to that. But I don't know. I didn't see it as a problem. I just thought it was noteworthy. Excuse me. Yeah. So I really think that having a bit more stereo width in these drop sections is going to is just going to be more engaging for the listener, especially when you compare it against like these lush sections. I like the chopped up vocal thing, but I kind of feel like, I don't know, as cliche as it may be, I kind of feel like it needs to have, that phrase or like some word that I can understand. Because I don't really know what these vocals are saying. So, like with it's called iced out. So I don't know, like the words iced out. Yeah, I wouldn't say compromise. Like I wouldn't want to compromise how it would sound on a club system. I wouldn't want to do some cheaty stereoization stuff that's going to fuck with the phase correlation when you bounce it down to mono and play it through some speakers at a club. But you don't have to make that compromise. You can do both. You can still have a nice, solidly sounding bass that collapses to mono effectively, but when it's not mono, you get like the stereo width, you know what I mean? So especially because like the basses, they sound like they should be wide. They almost sound like they were wide and you have collapsed them down to basically mono. I'm not saying that's what happened, but the sound of the bass is very complex, which makes me think unison in there somewhere, or chorus, or some sort of time-based effect that's been negated by some sort of like monoing of the signal. But the basses sound like they should be wide. I think that's why it's bothering me more than if they were a bit more of a simplistic bass sound, like more of an analog kind of bass sound. That might not stick out as much as being mono, but when you have these complex kind of I don't know, bass wubs, they usually lend themselves quite well to being stereo. And then obviously you have your sub bass, which is mono and down the center, and that's never gonna change. Like I wouldn't change that aspect of it. But I don't know. I just feel like the track, when it builds up to the drop, it's all big and luscious, and then it kind of collapses a little bit and it feels a little congested and less lively because the stereo field kind of goes away, except the drums almost sound like the only thing with stereo width. But yeah, I mean, the track is dope. Like, the track's sick. It's really well produced. I would just get some more stereo width in without compromising mono compatibility. And that can be tricky, but I think you said it a few minutes ago that like as long as you're like checking and bouncing it to mono and making sure that things don't go away, I think you're going to be much better off for the casual listener when they listen to it. And then I do think that having some little phrase or word or something to almost be like a stamp on the track with it usually would be the title, but doesn't have to be the title, yeah. That's what I think. I think having a word that sums up the idea of the song right before the drop, as cliche as that sounds, it's done for a reason, and I don't think it would be out of place for this track. But my biggest thing is that stereo field. So, and apparently Raham wants you to not use volume automation after the thing. Maybe you have a phaser on the high part of the bass. I mean, typically, the closer you can get, how can I say this? The closer you can get to the source sound and making it mono or making it stereo is better. So if you can do it with unison, that's right at the start of the signal path, because that's at the oscillator level. If you do a bunch of unison and then a bunch of chorus and phaser and stuff, and then it gets collapsed to mono, and then you try to bring it back by adding more chorus or something, I think that would be the less good approach. The better thing to do, to me, I would look at the sound, like the programming of the synth, doing the stereo part. I don't do so many synth. Yeah, so I think that I think trying to do it typically when you want to get something wide, it's better to do it as close to the source of the sound as possible, and not by adding something at the end of a big long signal chain. But that's just how I feel. All right, cool. Well done though. It's a cool track. Let's check out this one. This one's called Sky ID. Feedback on vibes and structure would be appreciated, please, with 4 Zs. Okay, let's have a listen. Yes, Paul, but I can also, why don't I, yours was this one. I'll put yours next, and then that way it will be on the VOD, but I'll put your track next, and then we can get that done. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so this is very cool and weird. The Discord command doesn't work. It's down today. The command stopped working. You just have to manually type it in. Yeah, I agree with Raham. It feels severely drunk, which is kind of part of its charm. But like the bottom end, just I feel like the bottom end isn't very solid. Like the sub bass is. When it gets to this next section, the sub feels a bit more like predictable, or like I understand what's happening. But here, I don't know if it's being played too lowly or too sparsely or something, but the bottom end just kind of feels like a rumble. And I do agree that like that may not be the wrong note, but like it kind of sounds like the wrong note. To me, it almost sounds like the bass line is playing like a harmony of what the bass line should be playing. Like it's playing a note that, like that note just doesn't sound right to me. Like that note is pretty much too low. It's there, but like, oh, that is a very deep bass note. Reverse grid snapping, so it won't let you put stuff on the grid, only near the grid. Is that what you mean?
Can't you see? I will never let it go. You belong to me. Our love will be heaven. Like a bird in the sky, together forever.
I mean, it is very artistic. It's like every part is individually reversed. That's funny. Um, yeah, it to me, the artistic, the art, the art. I guess the art. What is what is the adjective of artistic? The artistry. The artistry. The artistry is definitely there. I feel like if anything, the artistry is maybe a little over the top. Like it's almost like too artistic. Like it it seems like it's breaking rules on purpose, which is fine, but maybe some of the rules that it's breaking on purpose, it should not break as egregiously. Um, for example, like just the tuning of
Can't you see?
like that's very artistic, sure. But I don't necessarily love how it sounds. So um in terms of the vibe, it's bang on. In terms of the structure, it's interesting. It's very atypical, which is fine. Not reverse, kind of. Yeah, I like Kaidia's idea. Like maybe get all artsy fartsy with it and get kind of on the fringe of what's acceptable musically, but then you like snap out of it into like some like super clean production of a drop sort of thing. Like here, these drums, those top drums are sick. And so is the beat, but like there's just some questionable musicality things happening. So if anything, I would maybe try to uh maintain the vibe that you're going for, but also maybe pull back the experimentation of it a little bit musically. Like you can be quite experimental sonically in terms of sound design and like weird like percussive things. Like you can get real weird with that stuff, but usually musically, if you're kind of wobbling and wandering off of what typically works musically in terms of melody, key, harmony, chords and stuff like that. That's when you get into the real, like, maybe some people love that stuff, but you can usually get away with a lot of really weird sounds if musically it's quite coherent. So that would be my suggestion is try to pull back a little bit on the musical experimentation side. Keep all your crazy weird sounds and stuff like that, but maybe just if there's some if there's some synths that are going wildly out of tune, maybe there's like an LFO on the master pitch and it's drifting up and down quite a bit, maybe make it drift a little bit less, so if that LFO doesn't put the tuning quite so sharp or quite so flat, still has a bit of that wobble that you're after, but it's not like getting close to like half a semitone away from the intended note. And I'm not saying that's what you're doing, that's just kind of a guess because the whole track is so creative and interesting and unique. It's hard for me to really understand 100% what's happening musically. And I think that's maybe the problem that I'm having is like, I would like to have an easier time decoding what's happening musically. But the vibe and the structure, I think, are both great. I think it's just like pull it back a little bit towards normalcy. And that's not necessarily a compromise, well, I guess maybe it is like technically a compromise because if you weren't compromising, you would just keep it as weird as you want with zero thoughts of the consequences. That would be zero compromise. But I don't really think you're compromising your artistic integrity. You're maybe just compromising the weirdness of it a little bit, in order to make it a bit more accessible. Anyway, those are a bunch of random words that I had on my mind when I listened to your track. I think it's very cool and very unique. Maybe make it just a 2% less cool and unique. All right, let's move on. We got Paul's track. I don't know how to say that. Sesk, oh no. Okay, so the first thing that kind of stuck out to me was the sorry, the side chaining with nothing there. I would at least have a little kick or something. It's just kind of off-putting when the music sucks out once. You know what I mean? So if you're gonna have that side chain, have at least like a little bit of a punch to fill in the emptiness. And then I wonder if you could have one initial bass sound, like a whoom, you know? I don't dislike the way the wonkiness of the bass, but I think if you had that initial voomp, like if I don't know, I'll just go into a folder with some bass things. Synth hits, bass, hits maybe. Whatever, this isn't the right sound, but like obviously that's not the right sound, right? But like that's kind of my idea of where to put them. I don't even know. And not that you have to do it every time. Maybe you do it every other time or every fourth time or something like that. But I feel like you have room for like to showcase like another cool bass sound. And it's almost like a you're starting the sentence with that. Like it's almost like you saying hey, and then the booba dooba dooba doobie sounds is like the rest of the sentence. But like the initial part is like hey. Ba 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 ba. So I think we're missing the hey. I wonder, I'm generally not a fan of like I don't like when the track sounds like it ends and then something else happens. So I don't know if you could maybe start this 303 part like back when the kick kind of like right here, but have it faded down. Cause then we're not just I just kind of feel like you're standing around with your dick in your hand, you know, like when those parts happen. So another thing, I like this section, by the way, but another thing is I'd probably take that 303 part and sneak it into the first drop maybe at the end of every fourth measure or something. Just like sneak it in so that we're introduced to it before it comes in as the main kind of character. I try to incorporate. You don't have to use it heavily, but I think having it in there somewhat is probably a good idea. Are you planning on going back to this? Because I think arrangement-wise, it gets a little random. Like in terms like when it gets to this section, it doesn't necessarily flow that well. It kind of just sounds like you're like experimenting and kind of like doing stuff, you know? So I would try to have a goal in mind, and I don't think it would be a bad idea to anchor the song in this. Like, let's say that that's the drop or the chorus, like that's the main part of the song, right? Now I think you could structure the rest of the song around that so that yes, you can go and do other stuff. You can have the 303. You can do all that, and that's fine, but it should be there to help enhance and lift up that section. So maybe we go and we do our 303. It would be considered like a bridge, you know, the 303 part, build, drop back to the first drop, but now it has more of the 303 into it. So now you've introduced this new sound, and now you've kind of you've reimagined the drop with the 303 in it, and now so it's kind of like you give us the main drop at the start. That's cool. Then maybe there's a bit of a breakdown. You introduce the 303 sound a bit more heavily. Then we get like a 303 section, and then now we get the drop with the 303 section in it, and now it feels more like a community of sounds and less just like here's this section. I hope you like this section now. It's a little different, but it's in the same key and tempo. You know, like I think you have a lot of great stuff in here, but now you have to approach it as a whole as opposed to like each, because it feels kind of modular right now. It just kind of feels like here's a drop, here's a section, here's a drop, section. You know what I mean? But you got lots of great stuff in there. So that's what I think. I think it's cool. I think it's got lots of interesting elements. But yeah, a main focus, a main kind of this is the song, and everything else is there to either reimagine that from a different angle, which would be like the 303, or build up to it and get us excited to hear that bass line again. So maybe you're building up with the snare roll and that bass line is being filtered in. Maybe it's super reverbed out. It's very subtle, but then all of a sudden as it's building up, boom, and now we're into the drop with the bass line, and it's about the bass line again. So the rest of the track should feel like it is serving the greater good. And that's basically what I think. Okay, cool. Thank you for sending. Let's move on. Finally, I always look at the title of this track, because at some point I titled it Mevi P. And that was from a little while ago, EADE. And this one's called AAD, Loopable. Let's have a listen. It sounds like Kung Fury. Okay, so I dig this. It feels very Kung Fury. It sounds like a period piece, from like the kind of 80s cyberpunk uh crime movie RoboCop. Um I do find that sometimes because of the resonance on the filter of your lead as it's going around, every once in a while it'll kind of poke me in the ears a little too hard. Yeah, okay. So um I feel like yes, the chord progression is good, but I do also agree that at some point it sounds like it needs to go to a different chord. Like to me, let's see what these notes are. Well, I guess you told us AAD, right? It almost feels like it's always at A. So I feel like at some point, just you could even still play the dun dun dun. The melody would still work if you went down and played an F and put the chord on the F. You know what I mean? So send something to the Discord if I'm still in time. Yeah, you can send something. Just put it in the feedback stream July 25th thread and make sure it's downloadable. Yeah, so like I think it would be pretty easy to go. You could even do FGD would be cool. I think that would be a cool mix up, and you can still do the dun 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 dun. It would sound sick if you then just move the chords to F. Like not switching them that fast, but you know what I mean? I think that would relieve some of the tension that you've been building the whole time just sticking at A. Cuz like yes, you play other notes, but in terms of the chord, it's just sitting at A the whole time. Okay, so it's right? So now if I play F, okay, I need to play it on something else that's not going to distort. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so that's the melody, right? You know what I mean? Like I feel like that would be a good way to get out of the funk of just playing the A. I don't know if they're still here or not. They were on YouTube chat. But anyway, that's what I think. I think I would definitely get away from the chord at some point. It's okay to build the tension and stick at A for a while, you know, like that's okay. But it's just gonna pay off when you finally give us something else. It's like a relief. Sorry, I pushed the wrong thing. What am I trying to do? I'm just trying to get like a different friggin'. Let's do low latency and do a different synth. What's this one? That's like a sub. No. No. Sure. You know, like that, I think that that's a cool. Yeah, that's what I do. I love the drums. I think they might be a little flat. They could maybe use a little bit more punch to them. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. But I think they're good for like, it's like I said, it's like a period piece. Like you wouldn't want them to sound too modern or you lose that vibe. But I think just switching up the chords, whether it's that or another chord progression, that's what I would do with the chords. But that's just me. I think that's gonna take it quite a ways. All right, cool. Thanks for sending. Let's move on. Okay, this one's called Colors. It's a Rayhem remix.
Would've never moved to the city if it wasn't for you. But look at how I'm moving now that I'm out this room. 'Cause I'm so used to being used to being so upset with myself. Then I made my body like a puzzle and back together with your help. Ooh, I watch the shades from you fall down and make me a new kind of like blue. And I feel more like myself while I'm so colorful now. Ooh, I watch the shades from you fall down and make me a new kind of like blue. And I feel more like myself while I'm so colorful now.
Okay, when we get to this section, I love it so far. When we get to this section, I think we need like some sort of something with some not percussion, some rhythm, even if it's even if the bass is maybe dum 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 dum. I don't know. I feel like we've gone 46 seconds without any sort of increase in pace, and I think that it needs to happen here.
While I'm so colorful now.
Like to me, it almost sounds like it should like go.
Then I made my body like a puzzle and back together with your help.
That was weird. It sounds to me like. Okay. Let's see what that feels like. It might feel like it jumps a little too much, but.
Inside upset with myself. Then I made my body like a puzzle and back together with your help. I'm so colorful now. Watch the shades from you fall down. Make me a new kind of like blue.
Like obviously with the proper swells and swooshes and stuff like that. What you do rearranging my work? What are you do? Dude, you need to try again. I think it's better this way. I don't understand what the point of all this is. Or maybe you can cut it out here. I feel like it's excessive. I feel like the amount of building that you've done is excessive. I mean, a minute and a half before we really get anything of like, and not that you always have to get right into it, but I just don't see the value in it the way it is now. Now, if you maybe brought in drums earlier, the buildup was a bit more intense and started a bit earlier. Yeah, okay. There's no chance it's a you thing. It's definitely a me thing, right? Have I got, no, it's not, well, ozone is on, but it's not doing anything. I love the melody. Maybe it's the stream. It's definitely not my sound card because this is just taking it directly out of the DAW and into OBS. There's no sound card involved except for what I'm hearing. It's probably just the stream. But what do I think? Well, obviously, I think that it takes too long to get there. Now, I'm not saying you should cut it right down and get right to the drop like 30 seconds into the track. I just feel like I got bored, kind of like I didn't feel like there was any sort of indication that I was moving towards something exciting. And then it just kind of happened. I almost think that you should really chill out on the reverb during the drop. I feel like that lead is covering the whole mix in kind of like a satin finish, which is maybe what you're talking about with the brightness. And maybe the fact that it's so noisy and reverby, like that lead sound, maybe that is causing the compression to have more of an effect on the higher frequencies than if you had a more kind of clean tonal sound, if that makes sense. It's kind of like YouTube. If I have a blank background behind me and I'm talking into the camera, there's going to be more detail on my face because it doesn't have to chew up the bandwidth on the background, right? It can simplify the background and use those bits to put details on my face. Whereas if you think about it from a sound point of view, you've got this very complex, lots of high frequency kind of white noise vibe. And that's going to take more compression, or it's going to be more apparent when it is compressed. Different levels, it's kind of necessary for the effect I'm going. I feel you, and I think that it sounds great. I think it sounds great, like during these sections, right? I wonder. Maybe you should sidechain the reverb to itself. So like when you're playing the lead and the lead is actually coming through, it's ducking the reverb almost entirely. And then in between the notes, the sidechain opens up and that reverb comes back in. But then when you play the next note, it pulls it out again. Do you know what I mean? That might be because it's already kind of doing that anyway, whether it's intentional or not. Because of all the compression and shit that's happening. ducking with Pro R2, but not enough. Yeah, I would be interested. I would be interested to see what it sounds like when you're when you're playing the notes actively, if it's barely any reverb at all, and then when you let off, the reverb fills in the spaces. But that way you still get that kind of big sound, but when you're playing the notes, the reverb isn't getting in the way and muddying it up. Lost a touch in the second section. Yeah, the reverb, there's just so much of it that it kind of makes it almost sounds like there's reverb on the master bus. And I'm not suggesting that there is, but it just, the whole track kind of has this washed out vibe to it. And that's not always a bad thing, but where it's kind of like a hard style drop, I feel like you want a bit more power there, and I think the reverb is reducing at least the perceived power of it, because it's just kind of smoothing everything over with like Scotch tape, kind of that satin sort of finish. That's what I equate it to in my head anyway. Now I'm a little torn on these sounds that you brought. The plucky things, I think they sound cool, but in the drop here, we kind of we're almost only hearing the transient of it. You know what I mean? I have to like focus on it to hear the body of that sound. The rest of it, I'm just kind of hearing the pluck, 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 pluck. Like, I think it sounds cool here where I can hear it more. Like, that sounds sick there. But in the drop, it just kind of sounds like little transients trying to poke through all the reverb. So maybe if you reduce the reverb in the drop, the plucky pluck things might work in the drop a little bit better. But right now, they just kind of sound like, what's that little sound in there? It's like, what is that? You know, that's kind of what that's what I thought when I heard it. But I think it sounds pretty dope, honestly. You know, the stuff that I'm saying, I can tell, you know, based on the arrangement that you're just kind of getting started on it. So maybe keep that stuff in mind and move forward. All right, let's move on. Thank you for sending Rayhem. This one's called Watery Graves, Ragestone and Guap music. Guap. I mean, I think this is pretty sick. I don't really have any negative things to say about this, except it's not long enough. I love the sounds. They're kind of silly, but also evil. Like, it's such a strange combination of silly and evil. I mean, yeah, I think just keep going. I think this is dope. I don't know if there's anything else to say. Like the intro is kind of feels a little placeholdery right now, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't my expectations weren't as high as what got delivered, which sounds like a good thing to exceed expectations. But you got to also keep in mind that if I didn't have high expectations, I probably wouldn't have listened for 1 minute to get the payoff. If I just came across this on like Spotify or something like that. So I think like teasing a little bit of what's to come in the intro and just making the intro a little bit more exciting and maybe shortening it a little bit so that we can get to this shit sooner, because this is dope. It's really, really cool. So keep going. All right, that was easy. Let's move on. I'm gonna have to pee here pretty soon. All right, we got Our Destiny Deep House HD 320 kilobit per second. This is definitely the most descriptive title. It sounds dope, but this does not scream 320 kilobit per second. This screams 192. Let's just check it real quick. The square, Our Destiny, properties, details. What is a 320? So if it's a 320, why was it once a 192 and you re-rendered it as a 320? So why do we have such a steep drop off at 15 kilohertz? Why did you do it intentionally? What do you have against frequencies above 15 kilohertz? I mean, it's dope, it's chill, but like I think it would be better with all of the frequencies in it. I don't think there's any real benefit to killing the top end. Is that a Flex 808? Is it it's not Crush, is it Stomped? I can't remember the actual. I mean, like the vibe of this is super cool. It's almost like it's like deep house, but it's almost like vaporwave along with. One thing I would maybe try is maybe your kick drum could be a little, the shape of it could fill in this dip a little bit more, you know what I mean? Because if you look at, the side chaining and how it's working, you don't need to have it completely sausaged, but this is all kind of wasted potential for like loudness, And I'm not a big fan of like making everything as loud as possible, But if your kick and your side chain aren't exactly necessarily dialed in as much as I'd like it, I feel like if your kick was like more of like that shape, you know what I mean? It maybe is the same length, but the way the tail tapers is more of this like concave as opposed to convex, like it kind of is now. Um, because you have your side chain is quite aggressive, and it's exponentially coming up to the eighth note on the upbeat. So you kind of have this dead spot. It is a soft kick, and I don't mind the softness of it, but when I think of a soft kick, that's more about the transient part of it. That's just how does the kick start. That's whether a kick is soft or not, right? I'm talking more about the body of it or the tail of it, and the way that the length of the tail versus the length of the side chain is not exactly, bang on. It doesn't necessarily, like, when I listen to it, I don't hear that lack of volume per se, but what I do hear is the kick it kind of has like just a little thump, and then I almost have to wait every time for the music to like come back in. And that does add a bit of a pump feel, but I don't think you're going to lose it if you just make the kick fill out that side chain a little bit more. The bigger thing to me is like the high frequency thing. I don't know why you're killing the top end. Obviously, I can't hear the top end, so maybe it sounds terrible and there was a reason for it. But generally speaking, I mean, like, this track probably wouldn't sound very different if it was a 192 or a 320, because there's no frequencies up there anyway. So now you're kind of like, do people like 192? Like, does a 192 sound as good as a 320? No, because we're missing the airiness. We're missing the nuances and the detail in the top end. And you're kind of missing that too. You're not missing it because of compression, but you're just missing it because you cut out the high frequencies. So if you don't like the high frequencies, I would try to identify what specifically it is about the high frequencies, and maybe attack it on a track by track basis, as opposed to like in the master bus. It's a very uncommon thing to cut the frequencies at 16 kilohertz. I just don't think there's any real need for it. I think you're just removing detail at that point. I think also like what is that song? I feel like this track would lend itself well to the kind of those cut up vocal hits that you hear in like an M83. Is that the band? M83? Sex Hysteria. M83. What's that, that song by M83? Is it this one? Yeah, like that like that, to me, I feel like that would fit. It kind of already is. It kind of is. But to me, those fucking the things that are in there that kind of sound like vocal hits, they sound like MIDI choir. Like they sound like generic MIDI choir. So like that ba-da-bup, that's in there. I think that would be cooler if you recorded either yourself singing and put it up an octave and then cut it up, or maybe recorded somebody else singing and chopped it up. I think that would add a level of authenticity to the sound, because right now it sounds good, but like that piano is kind of sounding like a keyboard piano. Like it doesn't sound like, I'm not convinced that you played that on a real piano, and that's okay, but having like a real recorded sound in there as a main sound would add a level of authenticity, I think. I'm not saying the piano sounds bad, by the way. It doesn't sound like a main element, but it's kind of being used as a main element. But yeah, besides that, sounds dope, dude. Thank you for sending in. I think that was maybe your first time sending in, so welcome to the shit show. All right, moving on. Let's check out UK4 tagged master. Here we go. I see free mind in chat. I don't see your submission. Yeah, you have to send it in the feedback stream. Honestly, dude, I think this sounds great. It's a 192, so I wouldn't render it out as a 192. But besides that, I mean, like, it's a cool trap beat. I don't know if you're planning on getting vocals on it. Right now, it would go pretty hard with like a car edit. So I think it's dope. When it gets to this little breakdown section, I'm not really sold on. Especially because I can kind of hear like the clipping on the master when everything's low pad. But like, I don't know. I think it sounds great. I don't really have any suggestions. Yeah, I don't know. I think you did a great job. I'm sorry that I don't have anything more useful besides the bit rate should be higher. But I could totally see this being a great track to put a car edit with, or to edit a car edit with. Yeah, I don't know. Sounds dope. Good job. That was easy. Okay, this one's called Breaking Bad 3. What? I didn't even know there's a Breaking Bad 2. Okay, here we go. That's sick. I really like this. The one thing I'll say so far is that the way it built up to the drop, yes, I'm into hard techno. The way it built up into the drop I was like, holy fuck, like where did that go? You know, like I don't feel like the build into the drop is as good as it could be. I think it needs, even with maybe if if it built up a little bit and then everything went away except the you know what I mean? Because like there's the thing happening, but there's also the other elements just kind of still plugging away underneath of it. So if it kind of built up and then when it went to the thing, if everything else disappeared, like muted, and all we had was do 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 do, and then maybe like a and then into the beat or something like that. I just feel like the drop is dope, but it kind of just happens without much fanfare, and I feel like it should be like a bigger moment. And in order to have a big moment, that requires moments before it to be a certain way. And yeah. So anyway, you said as a placeholder, whatever, we'll keep going. I would also probably high pass your scratches just to get the sub out of it, because it kind of has like the sub. I don't know if it adds or not. I would probably high pass it at like maybe like 100 hertz or something, because there's some like very low frequency noise that comes in with the scratch. Now maybe you do that and the scratch doesn't sound right, but I think it's worth a try. Taking a chance that you're listening to thoughts on a track. Yes, no problem. This kind of has like Boards of Canada vibes to it. So you can really hear that low frequency come in here. If I solo the sub range and we listen, hear that kind of, or if you don't have headphones, you might not. But anyway, I think you're probably going to be better off to high pass the scratches to get rid of the real low frequency shit. That sounds like an instrument that would be used in Dr. House or House MD. It's sick, dude, though. This is a really cool track. I dig this a lot. I think if you spent some more time on the parts that weren't the drop and you high passed the scratches so we don't have the when it's happening, I think it's going to be a dope track. Good job. All right. moving on. This one's called Same Dreams. In before Rayhem says something about funk. Thank you, Will. I do my best. I chew a lot of gum. So I think you have like a swell sound that gets cut off really hard, and I can hear a little thump. So go in, and if you have something reversed, make sure that it doesn't just end in one sample. It has a very small like fade out, and you'll get rid of that little thump. I think this could be mastered a bit more aggressively because it has a lot of distortion in this. Like this style of music is very distorted just by its nature. So you can kind of get away with like pushing it quite a bit harder, and I think a bit brighter as well. You saw that I went in and I added 3 dB of the very top end, a dB and a half of like the high mid. And you can really hear like hear how like it like the percussion on the upbeat all of a sudden just becomes like, oh, now it's present when I go between like this is yours. See, when I go back and forth between the adjustments I've made in the master to yours, you can really hear that the kick is just very, very loud. And when I turn my stuff on, the kick doesn't seem to get louder, but the kick doesn't get quieter, but everything else gets louder compared to it. Like I've added a shit ton of top end, probably more than I should to demonstrate. But I mean, like it can take because right now the majority of the energy is in like that. And that's important. That provides the foundation of the track. That provides the kind of the power of the track. But the rest of the song, the stuff that people listen to, is above that in like, you know, the mid range, the high frequencies. That's where like this, if you listen to this on your cell phone, it's just going to be super quiet because your high frequency stuff is very attenuated. I've added a lot. You know, I've added 5 decibels of 6.5K and up. I've added 4 decibels of 1,000 and up, and then I actually reduced these with some compression to try and reduce like the thump of the kick. But hear how much more lively it sounds when you bring out and with the amount of high frequencies I've added, you would expect it to be harsh and hard on the ears, but it's so muddy to begin with that it sounds better, I think. You can also look over here. See how this slope goes down? So I have this at a plus 3 dB per octave slope. So it's taking the whole thing and shifting it 3 dB per octave, because a properly balanced mix is typically somewhere around minus 3 dB per octave. So every time the frequency doubles, the amplitude halves. And that to us, to our human ears, that's what sounds even. So if you take a sound that's twice the frequency of another sound, if it's also half the volume, then it's going to sound like the same volume. That's so fucking confusing. What you're going for is a minus 3 dB per octave slope. So what I did with this this analyst thing is, if I go up here, you can see the slope. So I've added plus 3 dB, and then we go for a flat line. So a proper mix should be about a flat line. And obviously the way it sounds is more important than the way it looks. But my point is, even when I add all of the brightness, you can still see that you got like this big lump in the bottom end and it trails off. But if I turn off what I've done, it's even more accentuated. Anyway, I use that as a reference. I use that to double check my work. Like, oh, this sounds kind of muddy. And then I look at it on the analyst and I'm like, oh yeah, look at all the energy in like the, you know, in the 400 to 500 hertz range. Like it just allows you to quantify it a bit better. Tried to mix with 4 dB per 4 dB slope noise. Yeah, so typically people mix to pink noise, which is literally minus 3 dB per octave, right? Now, the reason I love this Blue Cat's Frequency Analyst Pro is because of that slope feature. So if I bring it over onto the main screen here, it just allows me to, instead of going for a 3 dB per octave slope, it allows me to slope the whole thing up 3 dB per octave. So now I'm looking for a straight line on this graph, and it makes it real easy to kind of double check your balance. Anyway, yeah, I think this track is a very cool funk track. I like that it's like emotional. Like most funk tracks aren't emotional. They're more like, I'm a bad boy in a lowered car kind of shit. This one has some like emotionality to it, which I don't think is a word, which I like. I like this track. I just think that in the mastering, like the mix sounds good. I'd maybe bring your kick drum down just a little bit. And then I would kind of try to get a bit more brightness and a bit more liveliness in it. Right now, your master is going to really be limited. Like your limiter is going to be limited by the size of this kick drum. So that's why I say if you brought your kick drum down maybe 2 or 3 dB, you would have an easier time getting the rest of the track up, because the kick and the bass are obviously very important with this style, but so is the rest of the song. And I feel like the rest of the song is just kind of underneath the kick and the bass. So that's the advice I have. Interesting. All right. Thank you for sending. Let's check out this one. Untitled 2441 with vocal. Excellent title. Oh, let me make sure. I think I probably still have. Yeah, my bad. Let me get rid of all the shit that I did on this. make sure this is all the same. 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. All right, let's have a listen. I didn't miss you. You're just next. I don't know why the order got mixed up, but I did. You're after this one. You're the last one. Wait, why do we have another person that is chopped off above 16 kilohertz? What? Is this the same person? S. I can't remember which one was the other one that was cut off at. Anyway, is this like a new trend that producers are doing? They're just cutting off above 16 kilohertz? Okay, so this is very cool. This part here, I think the vocals should be more up front, and I think you should start the song with this. Like, this, the first 10 seconds of this is just like a swell thing, which is whatever. Okay, fine. We'll keep that. But this part is so cool with the vocal. I don't know why. You should almost introduce that and then go into the hip hop or, you know, the beat part of it. But now we've heard this cool vocal thing and now we're thinking about it. But now we're rocking out to this beat. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily the arrangement that you want, but I think those vocals and the way that they're playing amongst like the chords and stuff, it's so nice, and it feels like meaningful. You know, it feels important. It feels human, and I think the beat is sick. But if you can deliver like that kind of emotion, if you can hook us emotionally, like at the start of the song, and then get us rocking out to the hip hop beat, now we're gonna have like love in our heart from the vocals, but we're gonna be rocking out to a hip hop beat. So it's a good combination. I think that it's a missed opportunity to hold off until halfway through the track to hit us with that vocal. So yeah, let's keep going. So like lower mid-range mixing, I'm assuming you're talking about this track. So it's quite dense in like the lower mids and the mid section, but it doesn't necessarily not fit because the track is kind of like a lo-fi sounding track anyway. But I wouldn't do the cutoff at 16 kilohertz thing. I don't know. Like I could see it more with this track than the other track because this is like a lo-fi kind of style. But I don't know. I don't know if I would just blankly cut it at 16 kilohertz. I think there may be some nice air that you're missing out on up top without you can still go in on a per track basis and like, make things sound lo-fi and shit. That's fine. But even if it was like vinyl hiss and stuff at the very top end, I don't know. I don't agree with cutting off 16 kilohertz. Yeah, okay. So generally, I think overall for this track, I think you should treat the vocal section as one of the more important sections and structure the track around it. The hip hop beat and the vibe and the atmosphere is all there. It's all great. The arrangement, I think, is what needs the love. I think you should write the song as if that vocal is like driving the song forward and that you introduce it sooner. You hit us with the hip hop beat, but maybe the hip hop beat drops out every fourth measure for, a few bars and we get the vocal back in to remind us that the vocal's still there. And then it goes back to the beat, but maybe now there's a new element. Like letting the vocal drive the track a little bit more than what's happening right now, I think is going to pay dividends. Besides that, I love it. And also the 16 kilohertz thing. I don't know, just try turning it off and see if you hate it. And if you don't hate it, it's probably better. But that's just what I think. Okay, cool. Let's listen to the last one of the day, the one that I skipped by accident, or I guess FL Studio skipped because it's at the bottom of the list. Anyway, it looks like a short yet aggressive track. Let's have a listen. It's called Noise Industries. Oh, God. This is definitely unique. So a couple things. Right off the top, that one big kick at the very start was kind of jarring. I would probably do more of what's the tempo? Summon a Russian. That's a good joke, Will. Well done. What is the tempo? It'd be easier if you told me. 145. 150? 160. I was getting Yeah, like you could have some sound off the top for sure, but that first like kick was like, whoa, it felt like a mistake. The next thing is I hate these things. Oh, I guess I can turn the hi-hat off now. Like I just again I don't know if I've ever heard a song that does like a 4 or I guess a 2-bar kind of delay thing with just a tail that just tails off into nothingness. I feel like that I don't know that there's any value there. I would probably it's okay to have a little pause, but maybe like a drum fill or like a vocal thing to fill it out. I just feel like I'm like standing around waiting. Okay, now let's go here. So my next thing is like I understand, and this isn't really my strength or I'm not super knowledgeable in this kind of more industrial experimental techno stuff, but I do know that there's very little sub and there's no low end. You can actually see that there's like no low end going on there, right? So I think what you have here is cool for like the mid range and up, but I feel like you're missing the whole bottom end of the track. And I wonder if we can just find like even just like what would I look under? Maybe distorted. even if it was something like this. But see how it has that low frequency? Your track doesn't really have any low frequency in it. So I feel like I might be able to just do this. See what I mean? And then you may have to, there's probably going to be some more mixing to be done. But if I just sidechain your track for a second, and this may go against, here we go. Maybe that's not disgusting enough, So you could try different kick drums. But at any rate, you hear what I'm saying. Like the bottom end now has punch to it. There's something hitting me. Before it was kind of just rhythmic noise, which is fine for the style, but I still think you need that utility of like something that adds a punch. You know what I mean? I think that I don't think that that's even like a negotiable thing. I think you need like a kick drum that's going to cut through the mix and give us a bit more rhythmic information, but in the lower frequencies. Right now, there's just nothing down there. And then having there's this back to techno, or is it? Here we go. I don't know. Let's just throw this shit on and see what it sounds like. Because I think like I get the style. But still, I think having hear what I mean? So that's the sort of shit that I would do. I would go in. You have like your disgusting industrial techno sounds. You've already got that on lockdown. You figured that out. Now you need to figure out how to make it hit harder, fuller, have more bottom end. Kick 2 semitones lower. Yeah, I don't even know what key your song is. But we can do 2 semitones lower. Sure, why not? Let's see what that sounds like. That's pretty cool. Even just anyway, that's what I think. I think yeah, you've like I said, you've got like all that crazy industrial shit. You've figured that out, but now you need to add in the more normal stuff. A kick drum that has like a nice punch and tone to it. Maybe some percussion that's not like dial-up internet sounds. That's what I think. I think I get it. I understand the style, and I don't want to pull it out of that genre by adding too much normal stuff, but I think adding in some of that normal stuff is only going to improve the sound of it. Okay, that's it. It's my birthday today. Thank you for hanging out with me. I really got to pee really bad. My parents for my birthday got me a couple things, and one of the things that they did was my dirt bike was not running very good, so they took my dirt bike to this guy that knows how to work on carburetors, and they fixed it up, and now it starts like instantly and runs great. But it's raining out, so I'm gonna have to try it tomorrow. But I'm pretty excited about that. Okay, thanks for hanging out. I love you. Have a good weekend. I'll see you next week. Hey, bye. Fuck, I never know what to click here.